and he ate them.
They thought he was going to die.
And he was hoping he would. He was so sick.
He was. And wasn't he the one that we pushed out the window?
Yeah, I think so.
You remember when we lived in the apartment next to Grandmama and Grady D. Baker?
Yeah.
And he was in the window one time.
I remember something about this.
We pushed him out the window and he toppled into the garden.
Yeah, right, yeah. Yeah, that was, and we were right beside the garden.
Mm-hmm.
That was Granddad's garden.
Uh-huh.
You remember what it looked like?
Oh, it was a pretty garden. And I always remember that they had, Grandmama Baker had the dahlias and the zinnias along the road, the street, so that people that drove by and walked on the sidewalk could enjoy them also, as well as on the back. They were gorgeous. She had her flowers and her vegetables all mixed together.
So if you walk by, and the sidewalk going to town from I guess there were two primary residential areas. So that from one of them, the only way you could get to town was to go right by Grandma and Granddad's house.
We were on the right side of the tracks.
We were on the right side.
We were on the side of Grandma and Granddaddy Baker.
Yeah. Just sit on their front porch and look right down on Main Street.
Mm-hmm. And what was that old red brick building originally? That was right, that their property butted up to.
Yeah, right on the corner.
Was it a cotton mill?
Yeah, it was the place where the farmers would bring their cotton. It was the marketplace they'd bring their loads to. They'd bring a truckload of corn, a truckload of cotton, and that's. And then the big trucks and big wagons would take it to another town where there was a mill. So it was like the center, it was the trading post. So.
And we used to participate.
Remember what was right across the street there? If you walked across that little alley street there.
That was where somebody's little store was.
Well, behind that, there was another big Chinaberry tree, and there was a little wooden structure right across the street with a little platform, and people sometimes sit around that platform. You remember what that was? The ice house.
I do remember the ice house.
Yeah. When we'd leave church, if the preacher was coming, we'd always have to go by the ice house and pick up a block of ice. And
I remember,
ship it.
Yeah, that big metal thing that held the ice. You'd pick that up and carry it.
Yeah,
remember
a metal rack with a hook in both sides.
Yeah.
Kind of like big tweezers or something.
Yeah.
Pick up the ice and set it.
I forgot about that. It was a cool place to sit out in the summertime.
That's right. Under a shade tree, ice house, and there was cool air flowing around it,
so
especially when they opened the door. It was just a quick place to cool off.
Now, here's a big question for you.
All right.
Who was it that you saw asleep on Main Street in an old car one day, and it was the talk of the town?
When I was about, I must have been 10 or 11 years old. And you're right in the middle of town, there was this big black car, and there was...
Had to have been a Cadillac.
It was a big black long Cadillac, biggest car I had ever seen. And the person who took me down to see that was Aunt Sarah.
Uh-huh.
And there were people standing around on the sidewalk talking and looking at that big black car. And I didn't know what the attraction was. I didn't know, it is a big car. It's the biggest car I've ever seen, but what more is there to this? And Sarah led me up to the side of that car and said, "Look in there. Do you know who that is?" And there was a guy in there just leaning back in the corner, just sleeping. And he had a hat, and it was pulled down sort of over his head. And I said, "No, I don't know who that is." And she said, "That is Hank Williams." Hank Williams. I knew Hank Williams.
Yeah.
Because everybody, he was popular. And the reason he was there is he was taking a nap, and that night they had built a little stage for him down on the baseball field at the school and put up a tent. And the whole town went down there, and Hank Williams was up on that stage, and he and his band would play and sing. And they had fires built out there to provide some light. And the adults were all around the stage on the baseball field dancing. And all us kids were sitting in the back of the trucks being just totally amused that there's our parents out there dancing at the baseball field. But that was Hank Williams.
Yeah. And then do you remember meeting Lass LaRue?
Yes. I was sitting on the
I don't even know if they can go back in history books and find Lass
Jacob
LaRue.
was saying, who are they talking about? Well, when we were young, there were only all the movies pretty much were Western movies, or certainly our favorites were Western movies.
Yep.
We had Roy Rogers, Rex Allen, Gene Autry, Lass LaRue, Tim Allen, I said Rex Allen,
and Zora.
Hopalong Cassidy,
Yeah.
Lone Ranger, and Tonto.
Yes.
And I said Roy Rogers and Dale Evans. So we would go, I guess they just kept pumping out those movies, and every Saturday we'd go see another little Western movie. And Lass LaRue was the one with the whip. He didn't use his gun, he always
used a whip.
He would always disarm the bad guys by taking the weapon out of the hand. And one day he came to Ayrton and was on the stage, and I was sitting on the front row, and at some point in his show or demonstration, he looked down and picked out a smiley face of whoever's the dumbest looking kid down there, and it was me. And I got up on the stage, and he put an apple on my head and took it off. And
you held out he wadded up a piece of paper or rolled it up, and you held it out, and he used his whip to slowly take sections of that paper off until it was just his hand. He never hurt you.
No, never hurt me.
We were so excited.
Yeah.
It was my brother up there.
With Lass LaRue.
Yeah, he was famous. And Mama had dressed us all. I know why he picked you, because Mama had dressed us all up in our little cowboy cowgirl outfits. You remember?
Okay.
And you had a hat and a checked shirt.
Okay.
I think you had your guns on.
Oh boy! I think I still have those guns somewhere.
We'll have to look for a picture, because I think we have a picture of you dressed up.
Oh,
in your
really?
outfit. You were a cutie. Do you remember also? It used to be a big event to go to Ozark on Sunday after church to see a movie.
Yes.
Do you remember going to see South Pacific? I mean, and when we went to movies back then, it was such a big event to go into Ozark to the movie that we had to go in our Sunday finest.
Yes.
We had to dress up. You didn't go casually dressed.
No blue jeans.
You wore a tie?
Yes.
And depending on
it looked like Easter.
And you would go to the movie.
That's right. You might have dressed that. Ayrton was a fun place to grow up.
Yeah. And then we moved to Ozark, and you became an eagle.
Yes, a war eagle.
Carroll High.
I mean, a Carroll High eagle. That's
and later on, you became a war eagle.
Yeah, that's right. A Carroll High eagle. We moved when I was in the 10th grade, right? Moved 12 miles down the road to play more balls. Played, football. Down there they had football, basketball, baseball, track.